This week's discussion post asks the question, what the best and most challenging presentations we ever made were. And the ironic thing about this is that I was just discussing today what makes a great online presentation, and that one of the last projects that I worked on when I was working with the VR team was on how to gamify meetings that lasted longer than 90 minutes, because presenters begin to lose the attention span of their audience when meetings go beyond 90 minutes when they are in the online format. And currently in the pandemic world, where a lot of people are working in the online environment, in the virtual environment, I was exploring the idea of gamifying meetings to engage people more readily and interacting with them. And so I was in a discussion with somebody who was in all day long meetings, and I wondered how productive those meetings were. And so flashing forward to this conversation about what my personal most challenging presentation was, and what I feel the best presentation was, I think about the factors that go into making a great presentation. And those factors are whether or not one is able to communicate their idea clearly, making a balanced rhetorical argument with data and emotion and just facts, and not leaning on one side too heavily. And knowing your audience when you go in. You wouldn't give the same kind of presentation to a kindergarten class, which I used to be a preschool teacher, or a preschool class, that you would to an executive boardroom. Even if you were presenting on the same topic of shapes and colors, it would look different. So that is leads me to the last point, and that is engaging the audience. How do you engage with your audience during that presentation? How do I engage with my audience during that presentation? Is that a matter of asking questions or speaking in such a way that it causes the audience to share your idea? So that leads me to my most challenging presentation. And it was when I presented why I thought my position was relevant to a supervisor when I worked for a VR business unit for a major technical firm, when they were going through a reorganization. My role reported up through the marketing chain, and the marketing chain was kind of going away or being restructured. And I had a lot of points as to why I thought my role was relevant. So my ideas were many and far between. So I could have narrowed them down and kept them more succinct. I was missing a lot of data about the why of the reorganization, and so I could have met with this supervisor prior to my presentation to get more information, so my presentation could have been more effective. And then I was also a bit emotionally charged because I loved that job. I did not want it to go away. And so it was a bit emotion heavy. So that was a challenging presentation for me. In the short, I was able to keep my role, and it was restructured under the research and development team, but I still worked with the marketing team a bit. It was just a sloppy presentation, and I wish it could have been better. So, and that brings me to my most successful presentation, or a presentation that I feel I had a fair amount of success at, and that was during a public speaking class. The goal was to give a persuasive presentation, and I surveyed my audience at the beginning and the end of my presentation, so I could measure the level of sway my presentation had. And when presenting the audience with the data, I used evidence-based reasoning and facts, but also balanced it with a little bit of emotion. So the idea that I was trying to convey was shared, and I could be understood and communicate my idea clearly. So that is kind of what I feel was a successful presentation. I also won the competition at the end of the class. Most people were persuaded, and that I think is because I used all of the tenets that I find valuable in a great presentation. I understood my audience, I communicated my ideas succinctly and clearly, and I was engaging with my audience in a way by asking questions and sharing ideas in a way that they understood exactly where I was coming from. And by the end of it, we were all on the same page. And so keeping those points together and tight helps us all communicate a little more clearly in our presentations. Thanks.